Did Google just embarrass Apple? Well, today we will see, because we're gonna be comparing everything from the design, the displays, speakers, features, performance, and more. I've been a fan of Pixel devices for a while, but the last few years, they just really weren't that great. But this Pixel 7 Pro is different. And taking a look at that, I don't know, what do you call it, unibrow or whatever, it definitely looks nicer than the camera bump on the iPhone 14 Plus. And I gotta say, I'm not really a fan of the midnight on the Plus because it shows so many fingerprints and the camera bump is just all dark. So overall, I would say looks-wise, I'd give it to the Pixel. And with that, as far as the comfort in the hand, I do have a little bit better grip on the iPhone because of square edges, but the rounded glass and rounded edges of the Pixel are a little bit more comfortable. I also like that the buttons are all on the right-hand side on the Pixel instead of being split on the iPhone. And even though both of these are made out of aluminum, I would say that the polished aluminum, which looks like stainless steel that also goes into that camera bump, feels just a little bit more premium than the iPhone. With that, it also weighs a little bit more. It's also a little thicker in the body and quite a bit thicker where the camera bump is. Or maybe it just looks that way because it's a single piece. And that's also because it packs a lot of extra camera features as well as extra battery inside. And we'll talk about battery in just a bit. Now you may ask, why are we comparing it to the Plus, not the Pro Max? Well, these are the same size, they have the same screens, they have the same storage, and they're the exact same price. With that, we have a lot of screen differences, but before I get into that, first, I want to compare the speakers. Pixels used to have amazing dual front firing speakers, but then it got a lot worse. So let's go ahead and take a listen to what we have with the 7 Pro. Wow guys, that was crazy. The Pixel was winning everything up until this point, but the 14 Plus's speakers demolished it. And yes, I did turn on the adaptive sound and that made the sound quality better. That's what you guys heard, but the iPhone is still so far ahead because it has the same speakers from the Pro Max. Now, if you're gonna be buying any of the new iPhone 14 models, you're definitely gonna have to get a reliable case like one of the new iPhone 14 impact cases from our sponsor Casetify, which are engineered with the new twister design known as EcoShock, which provides 20% increased protection compared to the previous generation, up to 5 times the military standard, which means it's been drop tested over 130 times to ensure EcoShock doesn't wear off. And they're sustainably made with 65% recycled and plant-based materials. They're all very high quality and they're now available with more prints than ever before. And you can get them with MagSafe compatibility for all of your accessories like wireless chargers and wallets. And of course, we put the new Ultra Impact case with the EcoShock protection design to the test by drop testing our iPhone 14, with it coming out basically good as new since it has drop protection up to 11.5 feet high. So check out one of Casetify's new iPhone 14 cases using the link down below and save 15% off your order today. Now getting into displays, the iPhone has that notch while the Pixel has that little cutout for the camera. Now that can be used for face unlock. As you guys see right there, it unlocks it and then I could swipe to open it up. Now the iPhone of course has Face ID and the iPhone's is more secure than just a simple camera. Now because of that, the Pixel still has a fingerprint scanner underneath the display and that can be used to unlock the phone and for things like secure payments. The Pixel also has noticeably thinner bezels and that is helped out by the curve on the screen. As far as the screen quality, the Pixel is much sharper, but you do have to make sure to go in the settings and enable that full resolution instead of the default of 1080p. Thankfully, smooth display is turned on by default, which will adjust from 60 Hz up to a much smoother 120 Hz, whereas the 14 Pro is always stuck at 60 Hz, which means it is not as smooth, as you guys can see by this slow motion footage. Honestly, I really think this is a shame and Apple should have at least put a 90 Hz in this screen. Now the Pixel also has an always on display. Google hides that in the lock screen and then you have to enable always show time and info and then you'll be able to see that always on display. Whereas the 14 Plus does not have that. You have to spend another $200 to get the Pro Max in order to get that. You may have noticed that all of these features say that they're gonna use more battery. We have the full quality of the display, we have the always on mode, and even by default, we have the dark theme enabled. And that is because even though the Pixel 7 Pro has a larger battery, the battery life will not last as long. And a part of that is the processor, the Tensor G2 chip, whereas the iPhones is just more efficient. As far as brightness, the Pixels have never been that bright, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn them up all the way here. And even though the Pixel has gotten brighter, the 14 Plus still beats it out in manual mode, at least here indoors. Turning on auto brightness and heading outside, now the Pixel is noticeably brighter, which is nice, but if we enable dark mode and look at a web page, the brights really pop now, and that enables it to get the full 1500 nits. So I suggest keeping that dark mode turned on so you can get the full advertised brightness, whereas the iPhone can only reach 1000 nits. Now, of course, the 14 Pro Max can hit 2000 nits. So if you guys want to see our full comparison against that phone, make sure you guys click that subscribe button down below. Now, as far as HDR video, I was really surprised that the iPhone is not only brighter, but it has better contrast as well. And that is with the Pixel's defaulted adaptive screen mode, not the natural mode. The brights really pop on the iPhone, the contrast stands out, and I think that is because Apple is using a nicer, more expensive display that does have more contrast. Now, of course, if we go full screen, that notch is distracting compared to the Pixel, but if we're looking at the image quality by itself, the iPhone is clearly superior. And now let's get into performance. So far, the Pixel has won everything but 2 categories. Let's see what the Tensor G2 can do. I'm gonna go ahead and start the CPU test here. And as you guys can see, the Pixel has 12 gigabytes of RAM compared to 6 gigs on the 14 Plus. And we have our results, and I will just say that the Tensor G2 is not doing that well. As far as single core, we have 1745 compared to 1057. That is 65% faster, and the iPhone doesn't even have the latest processor. It has the A15 from last year. And as far as multi-core, we have a difference of 45%. That is a big difference, and both of these are 5nm processors. Now, of course, the Pixel is still nice and fast, and you're not really gonna notice that day to day, but where that will come in is 2-3 years down the line, the iPhone will still be super fast, where the Pixel might start falling behind. Now, what I'm curious about is graphics performance. I have 3D Mark opened up right here. We're gonna use Wildlife Extreme in that unlimited mode so we can test out the full performance, and let's see how the Tensor G2 does in terms of graphics. The scores are in, and we have a difference of about 50% in favor of the iPhone. We have 10.7 FPS compared to 15.7. Now, that doesn't sound like a big difference, but keep in mind, this is a very difficult test, and it just shows you how far ahead the A15 is compared to the Tensor G2. Now, as far as cameras, Google really stepped it up. We have that main camera that has 50 megapixels compared to 12 megapixels on the iPhone. It also has that 5x optical telephoto camera, which is 48 megapixels, whereas the iPhone doesn't even have one. Both of the ultra-wides are 12 megapixels, and as far as the front-facing cameras, we have 12 megapixels on the iPhone compared to 10, but one thing I noticed is just how long the Pixel takes to switch modes. It is crazy long. Now, supposedly the video's gotten a lot better this year, and you guys know how we like to do it. We're gonna do another blind camera comparison where I'm gonna shoot photos and Vadim and Angelica are going to choose. That's always a ton of fun, and that will be coming out tomorrow. You don't want to miss it, so make sure you're subscribed. Now, with that said, the Pixel also has some very unique features. They have this new unblur tool that can take blurry photos and sharpen them. Also, this clear calling mode that uses the tensor cores to take out background sound. Google's doing some cool stuff with this tensor processor. So overall, which phone is better? Well, other than the HDR, the performance of the processor, and the speakers, I have to give it to the Pixel 7 Pro. For the money, you are getting a lot of value. You have the stock software here, which is very nice. So even as an iPhone fan, I have to say that the Pixel 7 Pro is definitely the better phone compared to the iPhone. Now we'll have to see how it compares to the iPhone 14 Pro Max. If you guys want to see that, click that circle above to subscribe and check out one of those great videos right over there. This has been Max, and I will see you in the next video.